Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, geeks, nerds, ambassadors everywhere, and welcome to the Ambassadorial Wing and another installment of the Council of One's Babylon 5 review. And glad to see you all this afternoon. Hope you all have had a great week. I know we are not on our normal day. We will be back on our normal day next week of Friday at 3:30 Central Time, but life gets in the way sometimes, and tomorrow I'm not going to be able to make it back in time, so we're going live this afternoon, and I appreciate y'all's consideration and understanding for this. And we've got a lot to discuss today, not to mention not only do we have the review of this week's episode, but we got a major announcement earlier, or well, it was what, Tuesday? B5 is alive, and there was much rejoicing at that fact. So, and as always, I have got my fellow council members here, Fiona Wolf and Woohoo, Mountains of Elysium. My friends, good to see you all. Thank you for being here today, and looking forward to another great review, another great stream, and another great discussion. So, unfortunately, our good friend and fellow council member, Lord Koje, is unable to be here. He is in med lab treating all those wacky Pakmara because they ate too much. So, to our friend Koje, our fellow council member, our friend, we'll see you next week. And make sure those Pakmara throw up on you because I hear that stomach acid can be rather nasty. So, anyways, that being said, I want to send a shout to the chat, Bureau 31 and Archer Colin. Gentlemen, good evening. Thank you both for being here and hope you enjoy the stream. And make sure you smash that ever-loving heck out of that like button. So, my friends, I have done my deal. Let's get started. Where do you want to begin? We can either begin with the announcement or we can do the review. I am good either way.
Well, in the event of the announcement, my stuff will be rather blunt and to the point.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm good to go with either portion.
Well, you quit being so damn accommodating, Fiona.
I'll take the thing. Let's do the review first.
Okay.
And that way then we can have time if things can run on, if we want to chat a bit longer about the announcement or keep it short, that'll leave it up to ourselves then.
Yes. And we've got another member of the council here. Ladies and gentlemen, you know him. You love him. He has seen a massive uptick on his channel, and I cannot be more happy for him. Our fellow council member and good friend, Zod Rider. Zod,
hello.
Good to see you, bud.
Hello, everybody. Great to see all of you.
Rejoicing.
Yes.
Yeah, Zod, truly, congratulations. Good to see your channel booming and very happy for you, my friends. So, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you. I try, man. I'm telling you, man, it's hard to keep up with these time changes and day changes. I mean, I just...
Well, this will be the last day change. We will be back to our normal day, normal time next week. You have my word.
Okay, so it's going to be back to Fridays at 5:30?
3:30.
It's going to be Fridays at 3:30?
Yeah, it has been. I guess you missed one of the messages in the private group and everything. With me working a new schedule, we're doing 3:30 instead of 5:30, so it's not quite as late for Elysium, and Sophiana can at times be able to be here live with us. So,
okay, all right, cool. Well, as long as I know, that's the thing. I didn't know. I was like, okay, 3:30, 5:30. I was trying to get acclimated one way or the other. So, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. The plus side.
The only reason we had to switch these last 2 weeks is because both myself and Mammoth Bastard had doctor's appointments, and they're on Fridays, and I didn't want to miss or have to completely miss and not make it back in time. So we set them up for today at our normal time. So anyway, Zod, I don't know how much you heard, but we're going to go ahead and do the review, and then we will give our thoughts on the announcement from earlier this week of the reboot. So
it's like we can almost do an entire show just on discussing that. To be honest with you,
yeah. So, and yeah, Archer, Colin, I want to let you know the doctor's appointments. They were just routine. They're just routine checkups. Nothing major, nothing bad or anything. It's just stuff we need to get taken care of for both of us. So,
anyhow, honestly, that's important because you never know if something might pop up or develop. It's always good to be forewarned.
Yeah. So, and I'll Colin, I will definitely I'll check out what you sent me on Discord later and everything. So, and so anyhow, I do want to at least touch on the topic, and then we can, like I said, maybe next week at some time we can do just a solo or just a separate stream, just giving our thoughts on the reboot. But I at least want to discuss it a little bit here because while it's all fresh in our minds, and we can do a deep dive at another time. So, but we can go ahead and do the review we can go ahead and hit conflict of interest first, and then we'll go on from there. So, my friends, I have done my thing. The floor is yours.
I thought it was rather sweet of Garibaldi to not charge that guy as much money to find his daughter. That was very touching, and the fact that Bester couldn't completely rub out what makes Garibaldi Garibaldi.
Mm-hmm. Indeed.
You can see the contrast between Garibaldi, that guy who helped him find his daughter, and how kind of deranged he gets around Sheridan. Mm-hmm. So you can see there's definitely something going on.
Well, the interesting thing with the whole Garibaldi situation, obviously, Sheridan is tightening the screws because, well, he's having to follow regs, even though the regs aren't necessarily in effect because they are still separate from EarthGov and Earth Force military. And, the interesting thing is, and we discussed this previously, it just goes to show that even in a vacuum of authority, where there is no higher authority other than the captain himself, there is still the structure of how things are supposed to be done. And Zach also is an issue because Zach is like, well, I was hoping that Mr. Garibaldi would eventually come back to his position, but unfortunately we see quite clearly that Mr. Garibaldi is not coming back, at least not for the foreseeable future. And Zach is now the head of security, and he's having to make the hard decisions. And that right there is a conflict of, I mean, as always, Straczynski knows how to frame his narratives for the various episodes, and obviously title them as well. So, it's not an easy thing to have to pull the trigger and do the hard thing and be the bad guy, quote unquote, but sometimes you have to be the bad guy. So, Vienna, Elysium, Zod, your thoughts?
It is kind of to pun intended with the title there, conflict of interest. Garibaldi does still have access to certain parts of the station that he shouldn't. That made some part of his job, his freelance job, easier up to a point. And basically, Zach is being sent to confiscate some of his stuff, which makes things harder on Garibaldi later in the episode for what he's trying to do. So, which in turn pushes him towards Mr. Edgar's people.
Yeah. And of course, this is all part of the grand scheme, which we will find out down the road for Mr. Garibaldi and Mr. Bester. And, it's it's very heartbreaking because you have that flashback of just before Garibaldi gets ready to leave Mars and leave Lise, his lady love, behind. And unfortunately, he shuts the door in her face. She just doesn't know it. And it just it makes you wonder what could have happened to Mr. Garibaldi if he had just either stayed on Mars with Lise, or maybe if he had tried to give things another go with her. Or maybe if he decided to fight just a little bit harder.
I don't think he would have been on Babylon 5. I think he would have stayed on Mars.
Yeah. Well,
I think it's rather fun that they're going to use, Drawl and Epsilon 3 to boost their own broadcast because Earth has the tachyon capability. So, but they have a Drawl.
Yeah. And, that's, I have to say, at the opening of this episode, when Franklin is in the war room with Ivanova, and she's like, you know what? She's like, only an idiot would not have thought to do this. And of course, she's talking about herself. And it's that classic Ivanova humor. And she is like, she's like, we just don't have the power. And Franklin's like, well, there is Epsilon 3 down there. He's like, from what I could tell, they've got all the power we could possibly. She's like, oh, you know what? I think I'll go down to Epsilon 3 and talk to Draw. And of course, we meet one of the Zathruses, the Zathrai. I guess that's their name. So.
Well, I guess I could understand why they didn't think of him first, because they wanted to keep Epsilon 3 as kind of like a hidden card of sorts. Since, the first race that showed interest in them tried to destroy the station and overtake the planet. By pretending that they owned it. Oh my.
Go ahead, Elysium.
I was saying, poor Zathras. No one listens to Zathras. And they just, but it is, I remember having that conversation with my boss, because she was a fan of Babylon 5 as well. I can't remember what the project was. We were beating our heads against a wall, and then suddenly someone walked in and went, oh, why don't you just do this? And I think we quoted Ivanova word for word.
I do like her reaction. It's like, oh my God, Zathras, you're back. Zathras didn't go anywhere. Oh, you meant the
Yeah, and on a sadder note, we found, unfortunately, we lost another one to the rim. The gentleman who played Zathras passed away, I think, earlier this week. So it's kind of
I thought he died. I thought he died a while ago.
No, I thought it was a motorcycle accident.
Yeah, he died in a motorcycle accident. Yeah,
like a while back.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And BR31, I'll mention your comment in the war with the. Yeah, Tim Choti. I think that's how you pronounce his name.
Yeah, it was anniversary. It was a few. It was September 24, 2004.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the war with Alwyn, and no one listens to Zathras in this episode. We know even Zathras doesn't listen to Zathras. Very, very true. And very, very sad. Because it's just... Sometimes we don't listen to our own good sense, and we don't listen to those around us when perhaps we should. And, kind of circling back to the whole situation with Zach Allen and Mr. Garibaldi and Captain Woohoo, as I'm going to call him. Captain Woohoo is grumpy. And he's like, now that the lens out of the way, he's like, I can be a real asshole. So, quote unquote. And he's like, get his link, get his gun, and get anything else that he isn't supposed to have. And it's, of course, you've got another issue of a conflict of interest with Garibaldi finding out that his ex-girlfriend, who is now married to one of the richest men on Mars, coming to the station. I mean, the expression on his face is like, "Why are you here?" She's like, "Well, I'm married to Bill Eggers." He's like, "More money than God, Bill Eggers?" And she's like, "Yeah, that Bill Eggers." And of course,
he's like the futuristic Bill Gates.
Yes, I think that's a very good analogy, Jazad. Very good one. And of course, we're going to find out in a few weeks that little ISO block has got a anti telepath virus in it. So, yay. Anyway.
One thing, I think it was mentioned when I was listening to Lore Runner, that Wade, that guy's a great character, mentions that Garibaldi is, according to Mr. Eggers, expendable, which means by extension, he sees his wife, Lise, also as expendable, which puts that whole thing in a whole other light.
But for Mr. Garibaldi, that lady is not expendable.
Yes.
No, definitely not expendable. But, I would imagine if we went around the horn, we've all had issues in the past with former flames or ex-spouses or whatever the case may be. And we all, to one degree or another, have to... We just sometimes we have to reconcile that part of our life, and
it's a learning experience to be sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I will bring up our good friend Koj. He left us some notes and everything. I'll bring up a few of these. The use of a specific Looney Tunes episode, we see Garibaldi watching his favorite character, Davy, who he identifies himself with, who is being controlled by Bugs Bunny, who is messing with Daffy's reality. We've mentioned Bester's influence, and this I feel this represents what's going on behind the scenes, so to speak, regarding Garibaldi and the company he's keeping that Sheridan doesn't like. More the rabbit hole Garibaldi is going down. Yeah, very, very, very on the nose. A very good observation there, Koj. So, guys, your thoughts on that?
Well, it could be a way for Garibaldi to realize that something is wrong, but the programming isn't allowing him to fully recognize it. But some part of him knows that he's compromised. Kind of like when eventually Vester snaps him out of it. You just to see the range of different, like, oh crap moments going across his face.
Pretty much. Anyway, all right, I'll bring up Koj's other comment here. Even though this is Garibaldi's adventure episode, we get a glimpse at Sheridan starting his diplomatic strategies. We will see later in season 5 as he goes out of his way to work with Shakara and Londo, which opens the door for their bond, which grows and blossoms in season 5, which brings me to a third thing I like to mention specifically, which is how the episode is shot with more dim and neutral light and pacing of scenes without music or heavy station acoustics to their environment. I feel the tone of season 5 begins here. Yeah. I noticed that myself. So, guys, your thoughts on that comment?
Yeah, I agree 100% with Koj there. It's a very season 5-esque setup, and you really can feel for Garibaldi. It's almost as if he knows something isn't right, but he has no way of really reconciling it to himself at this point.
I think was it in later on when he meets Bester, Bester mentions that he was, or was it?
Well,
It was
yeah,
either
they
him or
wanted to keep him mostly himself, but more suspicious, that sort of thing.
I think it was the idea that the real him, the aware him, was still there, beating his, could see what was happening, was fully aware, but unable to do anything. I'm trying to remember which one that was, or was that in relation to Talia? That they'd keep him trapped, unable to do, unable to reply, and that was just a cruelty that Bester had. So he knew something was going on. He was aware, like he's having those dreams and flashbacks, but he himself says, "I don't remember anything." So he, on a subconscious level, he does know something's happening, and I think that would make Bester quite happy that he was driving Garibaldi slowly insane.
Well, yeah, because Garibaldi and the rest of them had it out for Bester's precious Psychor the whole time.
Well, yeah, and you know, we're talking about stuff that hasn't quite happened yet, but you know, it's still. I mean, we know this is going to happen. We're essentially waiting to get there, and it's rather heartbreaking considering everything that's going to happen because we know that Garibaldi is being played. We know that he is a tool of Bester to destroy William Eggers and Eggers Industries, or at least subvert Eggers' scheme to take out telepaths. And Garibaldi is just essentially a helpless victim in all this. And that stinks. And it really honestly diminishes that scene we saw just a few earlier in the season with Bester when he's staying outside the cryo chamber that's holding his lover. And you know, it just, you feel for Bester, but then the same instant you hate his freaking guts. You really do. You hate his guts.
That's the greatest part about the character of Bester. There's so much there. There's so much. It's such a deeply layered character, and to be able to feel those two distinct emotions at the very same moment is very noteworthy. So I agree with you. I was sorry to cut you off. I just had to interject that.
No, you're fine, Zod. Truly, you're fine. The other thing I will remark upon, that I'd like to remark on, is the conversation between Sheridan and Londo and Shakar, because we know that the Drakh and Raiders and Pirates are still causing all sorts of shenanigans for everybody. They're causing all sorts of headaches, and Sheridan is like, if we can get you two on board to agree to have the White Stars, to have the Rangers deal with this issue, it'll get everybody else on board as well.
Mainly because they are blood enemies of each other, and if they both agree to this pact, it'll just bolster everybody else's influence, like, oh, the Rangers can do this job.
Yeah, and you know, it's in everybody's own best interest that the Rangers be allowed to operate where they need to operate. They want to take out the Drakh. They want to have their borders secure. They want to be able to do commerce with one another. The Rangers need to be able to do what they do best, and that's kick ass. So.
And also, the Rangers can cross borders to chase down, we'll say, on the Centauri-Narn border. The Rangers can cross into Narn space and into Centauri space to chase down a raider. Where if a Centauri ship chased a raider into Narn space, or vice versa, the whole thing could kick off again.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't think anybody wants that. I mean, neither the Centauri or the Narn really can afford another damn war. They are neither one of them in a place where they can make war, even per se. I mean, definitely not the Narn. I mean, the majority of their fleet has been destroyed. What few ships probably survived the war with the Shadows. And, it was I think it was truly a brilliant stroke on Sheridan's part for him to say, well, here's the thing. Everybody's vulnerable. Everybody's hurting. Everybody's trying to recover, or others are trying to take advantage. Here's what we have at our disposal. We have thousands of ships, advanced ships, and we've got a whole freaking army that can go out and kick some serious tail. So let's give them the carte blanche to do so. But of course, you've got Londo and Jakar, who are still butting heads, even though they seem to have made peace, quote unquote, or will make peace down the road. It's just,
actually, this episode is kind of like a proto preview of how the Rangers are going to operate when they're part of the Interstellar Alliance.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Well, yeah, because here's the thing. Delenn says it perfectly in her speech in one of the last episodes of season 4. The Rangers will go where they are invited, and they will not go when they are not invited. And that is the long and short of it, essentially. And it just, this episode sets up a lot of stuff for down the road. And that's one of the benefits of it, but that's also one of the detriments, because there's not a whole lot we can discuss. There's stuff that we can discuss, but it's sort of limited because this episode is setting the board in a lot of ways, like certain episodes in season 3 set the board for the war with the Shadows, even though it was somewhat truncated. Because
they gotta get Garibaldi to Mars so Bester can save his precious Psychor.
Yes. Well, I say, what I say to Mr. Bester and his Psychor? Y'all may know what's coming, so if you can laugh or not.
Fully endorsed by members of the council.
I think that's how everybody feels about the damn Psychor.
Yes, we kind of see how they corrupt people with that character in Crusade. Mm-hmm. That Psychor destroys lives, and there's a lot of good people in Psychor, but the very nature of it corrupts.
Yeah, that's true.
And if you're a psychop, you're on a direct line for that corruption.
Colin, that's from the Reface app, and yes, it's me. It's my face. Just on different people's bodies, essentially. So, anyway. Well, guys, is there anything else about this episode that you do want to discuss? If there isn't, I wouldn't mind switching topics and discussing the announcement from earlier this week. But I want to make sure we give this a... Go ahead.
It was the quick, short thing that Colin brought up a great point about the difference, like in Earth Alliance, that Lise was treated as a second-class citizen.
Yeah, that I did not particularly care for, because just because you're born on a different planet doesn't mean that you're any less human or a child of Earth. You may have been born. Guess what? Your parents' ancestors probably came from Earth, so technically you're still a citizen of Earth. You're just removed by a generation or two. And it's just... Yeah,
it's stupidity. That's what it is. It's stupidity.
Essentially, yeah, it is.
It's also now that I remember, it's also implied that Lise lost her kid with the Earth guy, Franz, I think.
Yeah, Franz.
He managed to take the kid away because Earth's, basically between the two planets, Earth stuff is considered more dominant in parental custody, I guess. So I guess it was also a way to give the Lise character a reason why she'd still be on Mars and not follow that guy back to Earth, because being the baby daddy and all that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my.
Yeah. So anyway, well, guys, like I said, if you're good with it, we'll go ahead and we'll move on to the discussion of the announcement of the reboot. So, and if there's any closing thoughts before we close out about the episode, we can add them. We can have them then. So, go ahead, Fiona.
No, I just found it interesting that Franklin was just like, "Watch out for the captain. He's a little bit on edge."
Colin, maybe a little bit. I'd have to do some digging on my history because it's been a little bit since I've said anything about the American Revolution. So, anyway, I do want to open up the discussion about the reboot with Kojay's comment. I'd like to mention how excited, nervous, and skeptical and optimistic I am about the Babylon 5 reboot on CW. Mixed feelings, but overall I am happy Babylon 5 gets more shine because to promote the new show, I'm hoping will be the way WB will release the full series and films of B5 remastered on 4K and Blu-ray. Yeah, I think Kojay pretty much summarizes exactly how we all are feeling about the announcement that Babylon 5 is getting a reboot and that J. Mike Straczynski is going to be at the helm of the reboot. So, with Kojay's comments and my own, I open the floor. Guys, your thoughts.
I really feel like this reboot thing, I don't know what they gave J. Michael Straczynski, but from what I gathered and what I understood throughout the course of the show and throughout all the creative differences and ups and downs that Straczynski himself had with the studio, I'm honestly a little bit perplexed that he is on board, not only on board with a reboot, but is actually allegedly showcasing it himself, like spearheading it himself. And I'm just fascinated by that because the guy, was butting heads with the studio so often that I just feel like he's one of those guys that, like, if they start meddling with him again, if they start giving him a hard time, the guy is going to have a brain aneurysm. And so this is why I'm like you guys, I'm cautiously optimistic. And yeah, I think it will inevitably lead to a 4K Blu-ray release because, again, we already got the series remastered digitally, so it wouldn't be that much of a stretch for it to finally get a physical modern disc release. But again, it's there's just some things that don't really sit well with me. I want to know what J. Michael Straczynski was promised for this project. I want to know what they told him that made him decide to jump on board looking like Kris Kringle. I really want to know because to me, it's like he did not have, and I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but he did not have a lot of flattering things to say about the studio, especially during the Crusade era, in which he literally sued the studio at the time because they used his commentary tracks for Crusade, but they took out all the disparaging things he said about the studio in the commentary. So I want to know, like, that's why I'm just kind of like, did they take J. Michael Straczynski in his sleep and replace him with like a body snatcher clone or something? Because it just doesn't seem like something he would do, especially given again, the rocky relationship and the fact that he's so endeared to Babylon 5, the original, and if nothing else, it seemed to me like his initial goals were to continue Babylon 5 and to tell more stories in the existing continuity and universe rather than to basically reboot it and start again. That's where I'm struggling with it. But again, guys, I am cautiously optimistic, and given the fact that I am a uber Babylon 5 fan, and Jerry Doyle was a personal friend of mine, I can honestly say, all right, that I will give it the benefit of the doubt, and I will definitely watch it. And I'm not going to judge it until I have a chance to see it. That's how I look at everything. But it just strikes me as something that's out of character for the main man, J. Michael Straczynski. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I don't know how should I frame this without having a lot of cursing. It's the CW5. It's 10 times worse than TNT. I don't think Babylon 5 is going to be able, even with JMS at the helm, I don't think it's going to actually reflect anything good, because most of current Hollywood, they just keep doing rehashes. They want to even do a rehash of Battlestar Galactica again. So I have no faith whatsoever in this particular project.
But what's his problem though? Why is he agreeing to this? Like he was the most outspoken person. Anytime they criticized him or made any changes or did anything,
and on his own personal, what was the old style chat rooms? But I remember reading something where he was like, he didn't like TNT's approach because they wanted to have Baywatch in space.
Right, I remember him saying that. Yeah, I remember him saying that. I remember all that. But
and CW's like that on steroids.
Right. What does he think is going to be different with CW? I mean, what is he on? Maybe I'm starting to think that maybe it's just because in his old age, he's gotten to the point where, I could use the money, my heirs could use the money, like maybe he's just doing it because, the money and it gives him something to do. Maybe it's just kind of like, well, at least I could do something with Babylon 5. I mean, I'm not trying to throw shade at Straczynski, but the reason I'm the way I am right now is because I know how the man was all throughout the run of Babylon 5. All throughout, I followed the man. Was on the Usenet groups back then. I had some chats with the man. Listen, I feel like he's literally changed his tune. Like he's literally I'm a studio man. I don't know.
Well, if I might interject, and then Elysium, I'd like to get your thoughts on this. Here's the thing. It is a different studio. It is different people that he's working with now than what he was working with back in the 90s. Now, yes, I recognize the fact that it is on the CW, but here's the thing. If they pour the type of money into Babylon 5 that they have poured into some of the other series that have been transferred over from CW to HBO Max in terms of, say, Superman and Lois, or the Titans, which I've heard from many people that I hold their opinions in high regard, have been very well made, very well done. Yes, I know nothing's perfect. I get that. But here's the thing. He might be looking at this as an opportunity to reintroduce this universe to a brand new generation. And also, in turn, introduce a new generation of fans to the original. And he might see the opportunity to tell the story that he wanted to tell in the first place. I think Archer, or Colin, mentioned that there's not going to be any Sinclair. It's just going to be Sheridan in this particular run, which I think is going to be an interesting move. We're going to get however many seasons are going to be of this reboot, but it's going to be with Sheridan, no Sinclair. that itself is going to make things very distinct from the original run that we got. Because if you think about it, tonally speaking, season 1 is totally different from seasons 4 through 5, or at least seasons 2 through 4. Because granted, Sheridan was still in the picture in season 5, but we had a brand new commander on the station in the person of Captain Lockley. So my thoughts on this, am I hesitant about this? Yes, because I love this series as much as I love Marvel and Star Wars, and even Buffy the Vampire Slayer. But that's a conversation for another time. So yes, I do have some reservations. I would be lying if I said I didn't. And I'm not going to lie to you all. I do have some reservations, but at the same time, my reservations are outweighed by the prospect of us getting new B5, and perhaps what Straczynski wanted to tell in the first place.
Well, not to be morbid here, but maybe, and this just dawned on me right now listening to what you were saying, Ambassador, maybe he's doing this because his ideas for continuing to tell stories in the Babylon 5 universe have been derailed since a good sizable portion of the original cast has passed on beyond the rim. So perhaps the reason why it's like at this point, just reboot it and start again and try to do some things over. Maybe that's the motivation. Maybe it's more out of a tribute to those that are no longer with us and trying to essentially get a chance to, like you said, do the story the way he initially wanted to in the first place versus all the compromises he had to make. But again,
exactly.
I'm at a point where I feel like that's a great way of looking at it. That's a positive way of looking at this whole thing. But essentially, you always have to remember that at the end of the day, you're still dealing with suits that know absolutely nothing about these shows and do everything. They're very reactionary and they don't really play ball with creatives. And we've seen this time and time again. And that's the only thing that I'm worried about. I think Straczynski is going into this optimistically, and maybe he should. But at the end of the day, I feel like he's setting himself up for a possible okie doke. And that's what I'm worried about. I don't want Baywatch in space. I don't want it to become a mockery.
You don't want Riverdale?
Of the mythology. I don't want I don't want Riverdale. I don't want Riverdale and I don't want Babylon 5 to turn into a 5-mile long shopping mall in space. There's a lot of things that could be positive, as you're pointing out, but then there's a lot of things, unfortunately, that can go horribly, horribly wrong. And I think we, as fans of the original, need to be very mindful of that, I think.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, like I said, like I said, this is in my top 4 of the fandoms
of all time. Babylon 5 of all time. Exactly. And because of the fact that Babylon 5 has never been tainted by anything like this before. And as we've seen, history has proven to us that reboots don't necessarily translate well. And we've seen that time and time again. So
that is true, but here's the thing, there's always the exceptions, because there have been reboots or restarts. I mean, let's be candid here. We all are fans of sci-fi to one degree or another on this panel. I, for one, never grew up with the original Star Trek. I grew up with the Next Generation. Now, I'm not saying this is going to be Babylon 5, the Next Generation. This is a
maybe it should. Maybe it should. Maybe that's the point. Maybe they need to. Like I said, Babylon 5 has a huge universe. Has multiple timelines. You know, I also thought about something, Ambassador. I was thinking about you. You know, you mentioned Marvel and some other studios, and of course DC. And that. How about what would we get What wouldn't it be nice if he essentially did this as Babylon 5 in an alternative timeline where things could play out differently, but the original Babylon 5 still existed? Like you almost have like a time loop, or you're in a different timeline or whatever, and it's just a different.
Or why couldn't he just put it like 100, 200 years in the future with a different set of characters, so that way the old ones could rest? Because in his old commentaries on the DVDs, he's like, I never want to touch this, and it's like, what's this corporation making him do? He's touching it, and
Right. Who did he have as a creative consultant? He had Harlan Ellison, of all people, for Christ's sake. I mean, you got a guy like Harlan Ellison, and then you're turning around and giving into corporate greed. I mean, wow.
I don't know if he's giving to, but I want to give Elysium a chance to give his piece. So, Elysium, the floor is yours.
Well, I suppose for myself, I'm really looking forward to it. No matter what happens, I will always love the original Babylon 5. That can't be tainted. It's like it's in crystal at this stage. But the new reboot, I think it was mentioned in the chat already. JMS said what he wanted at one stage to go back. So many of the main cast are gone that he said he couldn't face seeing the old characters coming back without their compatriots. That he couldn't see Londo without Jakar. He couldn't see Veer. And he said it just wouldn't work. He felt going back. I was trying to find the comment that to do a reboot, to start fresh, so he could tell, and he could tell some of the same stories or the same themes over with more of some of his original ideas, because a lot of his story changed due to actors or due to some interference from the studio. Now, a lot of people will say it could be woke, but originally the Minbari were supposed to be an androgynous species, and the lens transformation was supposed to be much more dramatic.
Thing is, most modern stuff has a tendency to hit you over the head. At least the old stuff lets you decide what you wanted to take away from the show. It had a more timeless quality where it's not, this is obvious reference to like the 70s, or this is the obvious reference to the 80s or problems of the 90s.
Yes. But here's the thing. Straczynski is writing this. It's his writing. It's his story. And I will bet folding money that if anything is tampered with, he will walk. He has got what, quote unquote, he's got FU money. He will walk, and he'll tell the WB to go pound sand, I could totally see that happening. and the reboot will die. And I, for one, as a fan, as much as I want to see this reboot, I do. But I want Straczynski's vision as he intends it. I want the story that he intends. I don't want a lick of studio interference. I don't want to now if something happens with an actor or actress that, like in the case of Michael O'Hare, that they cannot continue for whatever reason, okay, fine. But and now, in terms of Claudia Christian, and I think the actress who played Talia Winters, if it's a matter of budget, I don't think budget's going to be a problem this time. I mean, we're talking, this is being backed by the WB, and it's going to be produced through the CW. CW has proven that they can produce good content when they're given the opportunity to do it. Now, granted, there is a somewhat bad track record. I will acknowledge that. But not everything that the CW has done has been crap. I mean, there are several series that Mammoth Bastard absolutely enjoys that have been on the CW, and there have been some that she's been like, nope, I'm done. So I'm going to give this the benefit of the doubt until I see otherwise. And I do want to bring up a couple of Elysium's comments here.
I'm sorry, just going to point it out there that I was trying to find the quotes. JMS said he wouldn't have started it unless the studio guaranteed him full control. And he's also said that they've given him the budget he didn't have before. He said this is a broadcast network who's giving. Oh, sorry, I'm after copying the wrong one out. Oh, sorry.
No, you're fine.
They've given original had a tiny budget that was half of what he should have had.
Yeah,
and that's why he kind of stuck with. He wanted the writing to write a show that will be good with a big budget or small budget that it shouldn't stand. But he's saying now that the network has promised him a proper budget and proper PR and advertising, and I've popped that in the thing.
We promises.
yeah, but Zod, I know you have your issues with WB. I respect that. But until I am taking this by case basis, I am not holding past issues with a studio against them. If they are dealing fairly with Straczynski, great. But until I see that they are doing otherwise, then I'm going to go into this with an open mind. I'm not saying anybody here isn't. I'm not saying anybody in the chat isn't. But I'm going into this with an open mind because I, for one, I want to see this on the television screen. I want to see everybody get introduced to this new Babylon 5, and I want to see people be made aware of old Babylon 5 because he said himself, the Babylon 5 fan base has been one of the most respectful and positive and supportive fandoms out there. And I don't want to say we have an obligation, but we should at least give those that are going to be involved in this reboot the chance to tell the story that Straczynski is creating. And I do want to bring up Elysium's comments here. And this is from Twitter from Straczynski. My approach to writing / producing TV is always know the last shot in the last episode before shooting the first shot of the first episode. I always work towards the end, which was always foreshadowing, metaphor, counterpoint, and other cool stuff. The great news is that the new B5 is for an actual network with proper budgets and PR. B5 originally had a ridiculously tiny budget and aired on a syndicated PTEN, which most people never heard of and could only find with a Ouija board and a hunting dog. That is true. Babylon 5 ran in syndication until TNT approached Straczynski and gave him the backing and the budget for these TV movies and for season 5 and all the other TV movies that they have done since then. Now, was I completely thrilled with some of the stuff that happened with Babylon 5 and with Crusade? No. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not. I want to see this series get its full run and get the full story told. And maybe this time, as I said, I am hopeful, we will get exactly that. And maybe a whole new generation of fans will be introduced to this great piece of science fiction. You know, Babylon 5 has always been about building towards the future, looking towards the horizon. And right now, with everything as divided and divisive as it is, I think we need something like this. I think we need a new B5 just as much as we have the old B5. So I say with no hyperbole, let the man write his story and then let him bring it to life. Because, to quote the tagline, Babylon 5 became our last best hope for victory. And if we get this, we as a fandom will have achieved a great victory, as will the man who created this universe, and that is JMS.
Well, I guess I'll get feedback from other people, but I'm going to stay true to my own principles where if I'm not interested in watching something, I'm not even going to watch it to hate on it. Other people can decide for themselves whether or not they're going to watch it, but I am, for one, I'm not going to watch this reboot. I would have watched it if had it been a continuation in another sector of Babylon 5's like setting with brand new characters, because to me, kind of like there's only one James T. Kirk. Well, there's only one John Sheridan, for me. And at least in that fact, Star Trek had an advantage where every Star Trek series usually started with a different captain and a different set of circumstances, or even in a different sector of space.
You're right, and it's not like all these exponential reboots where they try to reboot the original series of Star Trek panned out very well. So all of the things that Ambassador is saying, if all of those things are true and all of those things come to pass, if Straczynski gets what he wants and he's able to do what he wants, he has a budget and they give him full control, I'll give it a shot. I'll definitely do it because it's the man himself. He's obviously, but if it's not, but if any of that stuff, it doesn't come to pass, or we find out that Straczynski butted heads and is no longer going to be showrunner or whatever, then then at that point I'll be out. But I'm willing to give them the benefit of the doubt. But I just feel like I just keep thinking about, the fact that we're dealing with a studio that has a history of meddling and even meddling with Babylon 5. So that's what I'm worried about. It's not so much
even more than TNT
and
ever did.
Exactly. And I don't really want to, be sitting here thinking, well, gee, and listening to and reading J. Michael Straczynski tweeting about what could have been and what his plans were going to be, like we had to hear about for years with Crusade. That's the only thing that I'm worried about, because it's like you can only get bitten so many times before you just say, okay, I'm out. I don't have any more skin left. You guys have bit me up all the way around. There's nothing left of me. This is enough is enough. And I just feel like that. I feel like Babylon 5 is very special in that, like you mentioned, it has a very positive fan base, a very supportive fan base. We all supported every Babylon 5 spinoff he did. We supported it. We loved it. We supported Lost Tales. We supported Legends of the Rangers. We supported all this stuff. And again, it doesn't matter because it was all original Babylon 5, and it's all made from love and all made from J. Michael Straczynski. So it's easy to get behind something like that. But when you are actually going in and willing to reboot it all now and go in with the studio, I just hope and I pray that he gets everything that he needs to make this series a success, because the last thing Babylon 5 needs is a mediocre reboot. And that's just what it is. It's like the fear factor and the anxiety, at least from my perspective personally, is really going to be there until I know that all of this stuff is, all these ducks are in a row and that we're going to actually get everything that he's saying. Because right now, if you go by what he's saying now, we have no reason to question anything, and we should all be 1,000% optimistic. We should all be 100% all in. Okay, and yeah.
For most of the people out there, I would just say don't be blindly faithful that JMS will get everything he needs, or the fact that he's attached to it will make it a shoe-in, surefire property. Because most of the time Hollywood tries to take the most lazy way out, so I would just say don't have complete blind faith, I'm pretty much on the other side of the spectrum where I have no faith right now. I might not even change in the future, but I just seen too many things where they try to reboot something and it's just like, just why are they constantly trying to springboard off of people where they want stuff that has an established fan base already, but most stuff did not get people following it right off the bat. Most of this stuff built up over time. So you can't just supplant something and expect people to be like 100% on board.
I agree completely. Yeah. I mean, the original show speaks for itself. It's absolutely brilliant. It's been remastered. You know why this is happening? You know why this is really happening? Because Babylon 5 Remastered is getting great views on HBO Max. People are watching the show. People are loving the show. People are getting into the Babylon 5 mythology. This is why this is happening. So it's not that you know, a whole new generation isn't going to be interested in Babylon 5, because a whole new generation is tuning into Babylon 5 now as we speak. The difference is that now they want to do what they do with everything, which is basically create a modern reboot and try to springboard off of that. They always go into these reboots with the best of intentions. Every single one of them. Nobody goes into a reboot saying, oh, this is going to suck horribly and it's going to tarnish the original. Nobody ever says that, but that's usually what happens. So that's why you kind of just like, it's like if it looks like a duck and it quacks like a duck and it acts like a duck, it's a duck. So I just think I'm with Fiona on this. You gotta really temper your expectations and hope for the best, but realize
prepare for the worst.
But prepare for the worst and realize that most likely JMS isn't going to get everything he wants here, and that's just real life. That's just real talk. And I just hope for the best. And I mean, it's going to be. Have they already started the fan castings yet on who's going to be Ivanova, Garibaldi, Franklin? I mean,
you know what? That would be one stream I definitely wouldn't mind doing. I'm not gonna lie to you. I wouldn't mind. Hey, I'm a fan. Now I'm not gonna go on Twitter and say, hey, JMS, I'd like you to cast these people as in these roles. But will I be more than happy to do a stream where we do a fan casting and talk further once we know more about what's going to be going on with this reboot? You damn right.
I think the actors will make a difference. I think if you cast, because for example, one of the main reasons, I don't know how big of a Star Trek fan you guys are or you aren't, but I can say one of the main reasons why a lot of people are excited for this Strange New Worlds Star Trek TV show, but didn't like anything else, is because of the casting. Anson Mount, for example, is absolutely brilliant for the role of Captain Pike. He embodies the role in the way that the original actor Jeffrey Hunter did. That is an example of really, really great casting. So if they come out of the gate and cast somebody epic as John Sheridan, and you say to yourself, "Oh my God, this guy embodies Sheridan. He's like the new Bruce Boxleitner." Well, then that's going to get people excited because they're going to be like, well, obviously, you know, J. Michael Straczynski has an idea and knows where he wants to go. And I think that's where it starts. They want people to get excited about this reboot. I mean, really excited. Out of the gate, they got to cast the right people.
Yeah.
See that, but that's the. I just want to say one thing. Just one. I promise I'll keep it short. It's just, for me, nobody can really replace Sheridan or Delenn or any of the original cast. To me, those characters will always be embodied by those actors and actresses.
Yep.
So, and I do want to send a shout out to the Chad Cardinal Sin and Lewis Cox, gentlemen, Good to see you both. Thank you for being here. We did a review of conflicts of interest. You'll have to do the rewind or catch the replay. We've just been discussing briefly. Well, it's been more than briefly. The news that B5 is getting a reboot, and JMS is going to be at the helm of it. JMS, J. Michael Straczynski, for those of you who don't talk B5.
Actually,
Go ahead,
a quick thing when Zod, when you were mentioning there, if it looks like a duck, I was just trying not to say cats. Like the I was trying not to say it.
You could have, Elysium. I wouldn't have mattered. So,
like
I'm looking at I want to say I'm looking at Lewis Cox's comment here where he says Babylon 5 reboot cool, but why is it on CW? I feel like it should be on HBO Max. HBO Max needs new subs. Oh, hey, that's an excellent point. Like,
I'd agree.
Why take Babylon? You've got a property like Babylon 5. You're going to throw all this money into it. Why put it on something like CW when streaming is all the rage right now and HBO Max needs more content? That is an absolutely brilliant point. And I have to question. I got to question that. I got to ask why? Because really because then J. Michael Straczynski could make it more adult. He can have more things in it that maybe he wanted to put in the original but couldn't because of studio restraints or whatever. But putting it on like HBO Max might be a win-win, but maybe it has something to do with the merger. Maybe it has something to do with the merger, and they don't know where HBO Max is going to be. Yeah.
I do have one quick question though. Does HBO Max have the equivalent money power of, say, like a CBS or a ABC then?
Yeah, HBO Max has buku bucks for these shows. They're putting big money into these series.
Yeah.
I think it was JMS himself. Sorry, Ambassador.
No, go ahead. Go ahead, Elysium.
I'll just say quick. I think I'm just reading through some of the Twitter feed that JMS himself said he wanted it on. He didn't want it on a streaming service initially. I think he wanted it on a network. So it could be
that makes sense.
Well, and here's the other thing. Here's the other thing too. You're going to get more eyeballs on this now. Granted, CW, it's a minor network, but it's still a network, and I think part of the reason might be you get more eyeballs on it that way, and it could be very possible that down the road, depending on how long the series runs, they might start to do what they did with Superman and Lois and transfer it over to HBO Max. That is entirely a possibility because not everybody has a regular TV antenna. So it's entirely possible that they're doing it on network television and also the opposite of that is not everybody may have access to a streaming service. Not everybody may have internet. And that is a real life thing.
Great point, Ambassador.
So
you
want to be able to get as many eyes on this as you possibly can. And like I said, it'd be very simple for them to transfer it, like with Superman, Lois, and with Titans. And well, I don't think Titans has ever been on network TV because of all the swearing. But I know there are probably some other CW shows that have been probably transferred over to HBO Max. So,
Titans is basically a CW show with swearing. So, yeah, there you go.
I do want to address Colin's comment here, Ambassador Wayne. Were you aware that we got similar news in Doctor Who with similar cautious and mixed responses from the fans?
What's
his face?
Davies.
His name?
Davies is coming back.
Russell T. Davies is coming back to.
I'm so excited. I'm jumping out of my skin because I love Russell T. Davies. Oh my God!
Yeah, a lot of people who are fans of modern Doctor Who were very happy to hear that Russell T. Davies is coming back to Doctor Who. Colin asks, is it actually being made by the CW or just commissioned and paid for by them? Which actually, but actually produced by JMS independently. Colin, I'm honestly not for sure on that, to be candid with you. I don't always have the time or anything to dig into all the particulars of something like that. Are any of you aware of this or not, or anything?
I haven't heard anything yet.
Okay.
Just something in the back of my mind that JMS had some, that either he's producing it, but it's for the CW. But then again, I can't remember where I heard it, that it was something in-house himself. He was a couple of months ago, he was putting out feelers to the old people who worked for him or worked with them when on the original series.
Yeah.
So I'm not 100% sure, but I did hear he had some hand in producing it.
Okay. And everybody, if you follow me on social media or whatever, I'll do some digging into this, because this is entertainment news I am interested in. I know I'm not like other channels that cover nothing but entertainment news, but this is something I'll definitely do some digging. And if we do a follow-up stream on the reboot, or once we get more information down the road, we will most definitely be covering this as it progresses, because it's B5 and I love it, and we all love it here. So, but just to kind of wrap this up, because we are going to wrap up here in a few minutes. Being someone who has gone through the writing process and knows how daunting a task it can be, I have a newfound respect for people like JMS, who cut their teeth in the industry as writers. And I say this, JMS, take as much bloody time as you need and make this awesome. Because I know it's hard, I know it's time consuming, but once you're done, you feel a great sense of accomplishment. And I want this to be your very best. If this is going to be your swan song, JMS, I know you're not a spring chicken, but I know you're not in the grave yet either. If this is going to be your tribute to the future, give us your very best. So, guys, we're going to do final thoughts, and then we're going to wrap up. So the floor is yours.
Just a quick thing there. JMS said that he's looking at finalizing the script for the pilot over Christmas, to shoot in February, March, do pickups in June, July, and have it airing this time next year.
Well, I guess in my case, they're really going to have to. I don't know if this reboot can ever win me over. So I will just watch from afar, and unlike certain portions of YouTube that grift on their own kind of way and whatnot, I'll just keep going on and promoting what I like, and that will be the OG Babylon 5.
Well, you know what? You gotta love that, Fiona. I respect that of you so much. You and I have very similar views on this, except that I'm still going to watch the reboot, at least for a little bit, to see what it's all about. But I fully respect and love how you are approaching it, because let's be honest, the original Babylon 5 is a masterpiece as is, and I agree with Elysium in that it's in crystal now, and there's no way that it can get tarnished. I actually feel like the original Babylon 5 is so good that regardless of what happens with this reboot, nothing will ever touch the original. And I don't know how that equates with other franchises, but at least with Babylon 5, I think Babylon 5 was ahead of its time and is ahead of the curve even to this day. So
yeah, Because yes, I get that most trends you'll get a lot more eyeballs if you're constantly venting your spleen, and I know on my channel I have a tendency to curse a fair amount, but that's why of like the 300 plus videos I have on my channel, only about 30 of them are mini rants. Because I try to promote mostly what I enjoy and not trends that upset me. So that means slow growth.
Yeah, and that's okay because I would rather do the same. And most of you know me. I do precisely that. I don't do rants. I celebrate pop culture. I don't bemoan it, and I certainly don't rag on people who have busted their asses to try and create something of worth. So, but respect all around the board to every member of the council who's here and those who are not, unfortunately, cannot be here today. I do want to let you all know that we will be back next week at our regular day and time, Friday at 3:30 Central Time, with the next episode, with the next review of Babylon 5. I also want to let you know I'll be going live again later this evening with somewhat of a different stream. It's an appreciation stream, but it's for I like to be sometimes the contrarian. Most of you know this. And sometimes I like to poke certain people who I just think deserve to be poked. So later this evening, I will be doing an appreciation stream for a young actress who I think has gotten some undue hate, has gotten some undue criticism, and who has actually done some decent work in her short career. And Lewis Cox kind of ruined it. So thanks a lot, Lewis. I will be doing an appreciation stream for Brie Larson. So, and that will be it. I am going to bump the time back just a little bit so I have time to eat dinner and kind of relax and everything. That will be at 7:30 Central Time this evening. And I will be going live Sunday evening. I'm taking Saturday off and everything. I've got work, and then I might be taking in the movie on Saturday. Haven't decided yet. But I'll be back Saturday or Sunday evening at 6:30 Central Time. It's okay, Liz, don't worry. With our good friend Lord Koj, and we'll be just doing a Ambassador's retro review for the granddaddy of all anime. One of the very first animes that was imported from Japan back in the 1980s. And it's a personal favorite of mine. And as, of course, for the retro review of Akira. So hope to see you all then for that.
I'll be there. Sounds good. I love Akira.
Okay.
That motorcycle makes the rounds. Very iconic vehicle.
Yes, it is. So, and of course,
I want to say this, Ambassador, since you mentioned Akira. I interviewed Jan Rapson, the voice actor who did the voice of Tetsuo in the original 80s dub for Streamline Pictures.
Really?
Yeah. And it was a fantastic fantastic little interview. The guy was shocked when I approached him and about wanting to do it. He's like, nobody's ever asked to talk to me about Akira. So it was a really interesting interview. You are doing an appreciation show for Akira is great, man. That movie deserves all the love in the world. It's absolutely fantastic.
Well, hey, Zod, if you'd like to be on the panel, if you're free Sunday evening, I will send you a link. So,
all right,
we can discuss that off air. So, but like I said, thank you all for being here this afternoon. Hope you all enjoyed the stream. Make sure you smash that like button. And to the one person who left a downvote, thank you for the interaction. So, anyways, folks, we will see you next week. You all have a great weekend. And as always, this is the Council of One saying, and I hope we can get this right for once. And 3, 2, 1. Zooty.
No
Zoot. 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 Good night, everybody.